It's been many moons since I have sat in this seat, and I'm so delighted to be here with all of you, taking up where Elizabeth has left off, and she and I will be passing it back and forth for a bit here. And yeah, it feels really good to be back in the circle. So welcome, everybody. So good to see you. Yeah. So it is the 9th of January, and it's a new year. And I've been kind of reflecting on the fact that it's a new year. I looked back at my notes from this particular group starting when we started on Zoom in 2020. And we went all through 2020, and we went all through 2021, and we went all through 2022. And just a special thank you to you, Elizabeth, for holding the space while I stepped back last year. And looking very much forward to how things evolve and go forward from here. But it's been a beautiful unfolding through a particularly challenging time for life on Earth with COVID. It's, kind of where we started was when COVID shut things down and brought us together. So here we are at the beginning of another year, and I've been thinking about and wanted to talk a little bit about the practice of beginning anew in light of the fact that it is a new year. And what came to me too was one of the gathas of Thich Nhat Hanh. He has these little mindfulness poems done on the breath, and I love this one. It says, "Waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and to look at all beings with the eyes of compassion." That was the 24 brand new hours that struck me today. And also just, 12 brand new months ahead of us, unconditioned by, hopefully, by what has come before or what we think might come next, if we're fully present in the moment. And that, of course, is the practice of mindfulness, to be present. So I wanted to just start with sort of inviting us to take refuge in the quiet and the stillness that we have given ourselves without distraction here in this circle, entering the temple, as we sometimes say, taking our seat, and honoring and remembering the beauty of such a time. It's rare and precious. And then cultivating the bodhicitta, the heart mind of enlightenment, the caring and the compassion that we feel not just for ourselves, but for all beings. Taking that as our inspiration to be here, to be a good person, to take care of life, recognizing our interbeing nature, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, and then practicing being here in that spirit, acknowledging our intention to wake up together. Like, let's take each other's hands. I think of Thich Nhat Hanh, the way he would lead the walking meditation. And he would start it, and there would always be the children in the front. And he would hold out his hands, and there would be a little child on either side, walking with Thai, slowly, quietly, mindfully. It's so beautiful, and we would look at each other, and Hugh and I would hold hands and walk down the path, or hold hands with somebody we don't even know, breathing. So this basic practice of mindfulness, to return to the present moment, to be aware or mindful of what is happening as it is happening. Not being caught by the past or the future, which is where we spend most of our time. And to just rest awareness on the breath, returning to the breath consciously over and over, knowing that that is both an anchor for the mind so that it is not running all over the place, the monkey mind, but it is also a method to calm our anxiety and all of our other reactive emotions so that we can just be here, and it's like, okay, time out. I'm going to be here right now. And all that other stuff can wait until later. It'll still be there. And maybe in the course of the meditation, some of it will actually fall away. Not so important. No. But as we practice sitting and walking meditation, and even just sitting here listening, notice what's happening with the emotions. Notice what's happening with the mind and the thinking, and just come back to the breath. And remember that when we do practice sitting, it's very helpful, and it seems so childish, really, so simplistic to count the breaths. But I tell you, it is kind of a magic formula. It's like a mantra, like in, out, 1. In, out, 2. Can you get up to 10 without having a thought? Ha ha ha. I seldom do. I don't know about you, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, because it's training. So take it to heart. This is good medicine, and it actually has some powerful effects. Just breathing. And the walking too. The walking is so useful, walking meditation, especially when we're agitated, to calm down. Sometimes it's hard to sit still when you feel agitated or worked up about something. And so walking with mindfulness. In other words, connecting the breath with the walk, the steps. So we're breathing in and stepping, breathing out and stepping, or breathing in and stepping 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathing out, stepping 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the rhythm is. But being present with that activity is a way to connect the body and the mind in the present moment. And, really making contact with the ground beneath us. If we're outside, seeing the blue sky, the vast space. So helpful. Noticing what's all around us that we miss so much of the time because we're so distracted. There's so much going on all the time that we're being barraged with or concerned about. So there is a recitation that I learned at Plum Village that I wanted to read about beginning anew. and then just talk a little bit about the practice because it is also very helpful. And then we'll go into the meditation. Maybe I'll ring the bell just to get us into that space of deep listening to this beautiful contemplation on beginning anew as we come together for the first time in the new year. With great respect, we turn towards Shakyamuni Buddha, the conqueror of afflictions. We have lived in forgetfulness for a long time, since we have not had the opportunity to encounter the Dharma. We have brought about our own suffering. We have been blinded by our wrong perceptions for a very long time. Our heart's garden is sown with attachment, hatred, and pride. In us are seeds of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and lies. Our everyday deeds and words do damage. All these wrong actions obstruct our peace and joy. Let us begin anew. We are often thoughtless, straying from the path of mindfulness. We are a storehouse of suffering, worry, and anxiety. A storehouse built on wrong perceptions. And we have become weary of life. Because we do not understand others, we maintain ill will against them. Even after a dispute has been resolved, we continue to feel separate, and the gap between us widens. There are days when we are unwilling to speak to each other, unwilling to look each other in the face. And so we create internal formations. And now we turn to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Sincerely recognizing our errors, we bow our heads. We know so well that in our consciousness, all the wholesome seeds are planted. Seeds of love and understanding, the seeds of peace and joy. But if we do not know how to nourish them, and if we always allow sorrow to overwhelm them, how can they spring up fresh and green? When we chase after distant happiness, life becomes but a shadow of reality. Our mind is always occupied by the past or worrying about this and that in the future. We cannot let go of our anger, and we long for what we have to be permanent, and so we bury our real happiness. As month follows month, we are sunk in sorrow, but now we recognize our errors and begin anew, fragrant as a breath of fresh air. With all our heart, we go for refuge, turning to the Buddhas in the 10 directions and all the Bodhisattvas, noble disciples, and self-achieved Buddhas. Very sincerely, we recognize our errors and the mistake of our wrong judgments. Please bring the balm of clear water to pour over the roots of our afflictions. Please bring the raft of the true teachings to carry us over the ocean of sorrow. We vow to live an awakened life, to learn the path of true happiness, and to practice the half smile and conscious breathing. Diligently, we vow to live in mindfulness. We return to live in the wonderful present, to plant our heart's garden with good seeds, to cultivate the foundations of understanding and love, and to allow the way of mindfulness, to follow the way of mindfulness. We practice looking and understanding deeply to be able to see the nature of all that is, and so to be free of the bonds of birth and death. To learn to speak lovingly, to be affectionate, to care for others, whether it is early morn or late afternoon. To plant the seeds of joy in many places, helping people to abandon sorrow, to respond with deep gratitude to the kindness of parents, teachers, and friends. We ask the Bodhisattva of compassion to be our protector on the wonderful path of practice. We vow to walk every step of the path with energy so that our practice may bear fruit. May it be so. May it be so. Remember, to be aware and awake. Not to be heavy about it. There's a little tone of like, but it's in the spirit of remember, and we can do that. We can help each other do that. So there's a practice that is also taught at Plum Village, and I don't want to do the practice, but I want to share it with you because it's really helpful to have in your back pocket. And it's a practice called beginning anew. And it dates to the time of the Buddha when communities of monks and nuns practiced in this way every new moon and full moon. And the ceremony has 3 parts. This was, of course, adapted creatively by Thich Nhat Hanh, and as he does with so many things. But the 3 parts are flower watering, expressing regrets, and then expressing difficulties and hurts. So it can help very much, when hurtful feelings build up over time, to clear the way. And it's helpful in families, and it's helpful in communities like a monastery, you can imagine, when we have to take care. And so, if there's ever any sorts of problems, this is a way to, in a healthy way, a mindful way, to address them. So the flower watering is, first of all, you make a little flower arrangement, vase. You put that in the middle of the circle, and you gather together members of the community or the family. And when someone is ready to speak, they join palms and indicate that they would like to do so. And then take the little vase of flowers and bring it to their seat. And practice so that the words reflect the beauty and the freshness of the flower. And so in the flower watering, each of the speakers acknowledges the wholesome and beautiful qualities of the others or of another. It can be one-on-one also. It's not, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, not flattery, but truth, what you see, what you really appreciate. And everyone, needs to hear that, and we need to learn how to share it and see it. And when we're speaking, there's no interruption when you're holding the flower. So it's like deep listening, counsel, sort of a counsel practice. Take as much time as you need, and everyone else is just listening. And when you're finished speaking, then you put the vase down and it moves on. The second part of the ceremony is expressing regrets. So whatever we have done, I have done, that might have been hurtful to someone else, then I express, I let that be known, that I have not missed seeing that I have been hurtful, and take the time to begin anew, to recall a regret that I have had from a day or two ago, or a week ago, or a month ago, and bring it forward and express that this is a regret. And then the third part of the ceremony then is to express ways in which others have hurt us. So, of course, this is where we get into trouble more than the rest of the two previous steps, because there is a tendency to, have that trigger of blame or arguing. And that's not what we're doing here. We want to be able to speak openly and frankly, but not to be destructive. So, not to cause more harm in how we communicate, but to say, this is how I have suffered. This is how I have suffered. Not you did this to me and blah, 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 but this is how I have suffered. And then listening, sitting among a supportive circle, practicing deep listening so that we're contributing to supporting the person who is speaking to be constructive. That's so helpful. The 5 awarenesses are also a beautiful thing to remember in here, because they talk about, I can read them very, very quickly. We are aware that all generations of our ancestors and all future generations are present in us. We are aware of the expectations that our ancestors, our children, and their children have of us. We are aware that our joy, peace, freedom, and harmony is the joy, peace, freedom, and harmony of our children, our ancestors, our children, and their children. We are aware that understanding is the very foundation of love. And we are aware that blaming and arguing can never help us. It only creates a wider gap between us. And that only understanding, trust, and love can help us change and grow. Oh, these are the 5 awarenesses that Thich Nhat Hanh invites into a wedding ceremony between a couple to practice. And that piece about blaming and arguing, and that really and truly only understanding, trust, and love helps us to change and grow. So we remember these things, we are mindful of them, we learn them, and we practice them. And this is all part of beginning anew. Oh, and listening compassionately, being willing to relieve the suffering of another and not to judge or argue. Listening, even if we hear something that might not be true, we don't react in that moment. We wait. So we give the person a chance to express their pain, release that tension. And then later, we might go to them and say something, in a private way or a calm way, And then, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, in the beginning anew, next time, that person may be the one to have a regret about what was said. You never know. I was going through my files, refreshing myself about beginning anew, and I found this little piece of paper that Thich Nhat Hanh had written a little note to me related to my Dharma name from him, which is Chan Nguyen. He was a Zen master from the 17th century, and it's a quote, which the first part is in Vietnamese. And then there's this translation, and it struck me as related. He says, "This is Chan Nguyen. Speaking, you are trapped. Say nothing, you cannot get away. Because of your one stroke, the sun is coming out of the mountains, shining." Don't you love Zen? So at the end of the beginning anew, we might hold hands and sing a song, or as Ty would suggest, practice hugging meditation, which is to hug with mindfulness, take each other in our arms and breathe in and out 3 times to become very present with the person that you're hugging. He said, here's a quote, if you breathe deeply like that, holding the person you love, the energy of care, love, and mindfulness will penetrate into that person, and she will be nourished and bloom like a flower. At a retreat for psychotherapists in Colorado, we practiced hugging meditation, and one retreatant, when he returned home to Philadelphia, hugged his wife at the airport in a way he had never hugged her before. To be really there, you only need to breathe mindfully, and suddenly both of you become real. It may be one of the best moments in your life. So let us begin anew and breathe together as we sit, walk, sit, and renew ourselves in so doing. Renew ourselves in the spirit of beginning anew.